What is going on, everybody? I hope you're having a great day today. This is Alex from the Fresh Fantasy Podcast, and this is the 33rd episode of Season 3. Today, we're going to be talking about league winners at each position. This is one of my favorite episodes every year because these are my favorite guys to be taking in every single draft and why. But we also have a very special guest bringing the heat with his league winners. This special guest is many things, including an underworld boss, an ADP whisperer, and the host of the podcast that brought down Bill O'Brien. But more than anything, he is the CEO of one of the best fantasy football sites on the planet with over 36,000 followers on Twitter. He is the man, the myth, the legend, the Podfather, Matt Kelley. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Alex. I like this show. It's very fresh. Fresh fantasy.
I know. I got to put a Febreze logo somewhere on the logo. We just got to stick some Febreze or something like that.
It smells good, dude. It smells
good. It smells good. But you know what is going to also smelling good? I think some of these players.
Oh, segue alert. Segue alert. Let's see if we can get multiple segue alerts. Let's see if we can get you multiple segue alerts. I'll try to derail the show and to see if you can segue seamlessly and elegantly back in.
My balance is not that great. I don't do that well on things like segways to begin with. I don't ride skateboards or do skating and stuff like that. So this will be a challenge, but I'm up for it. I'm up for a little tempo run, trying to throw off my balance, and we'll try to stay with it. But I'm excited for this today. I'm always excited. This is the best time of year. Training camp reports are coming out. We got lots of good stuff coming, but a lot of guys are getting a lot of hype right now, but only a few players are going to be the league winners. You're the guest today. We will start with you. Who was your first quarterback league winner? We'll go position by position and a bonus at the end.
So here's the thing. Like, I know people are going to say Trey Lance. I haven't looked at yours yet.
I have Trey Lance.
You have Trey. Okay. You're Trey. Okay. Of course. Right. Of course. Right. Trey Lance and Justin Fields, right? Mobile quarterbacks heading into their second year, best case scenario outcomes. I mean, Trey Lance, he could, rush for 800 yards. And then he has, one of the better wide receiver duos in the league, one of the better tight ends. Right. Certainly it's possible. But I have a guy who I think is drafted in a similar ADP who could smash. And I think Trey Lance, in terms of median outcome, we definitely project below this guy.
Fair.
But he also has complete smash appeal, but also a much higher floor. It's like, the danger of you just having to drop Trey Lance because he's not efficient throwing the ball is a lot higher than this guy. And this guy's Dak Prescott.
Oh,
so Dak Prescott is now viewed by the fantasy football community as a non-rusher. And it was just last year before the injury, right? He had this pretty severe elbow injury, as well as before that, a pretty severe, groin abdominal injury, which really cost him, right? And then he had this severe calf strain. And then before that, he had this compound ankle fracture, right, in 2020. So he's had all these issues. But I think that, Dak Prescott, when healthy, and he's been healthy, even last year, remember, he was not fully healthy. He was coming off this severe ankle injury, which cost him the entire, most of the 2020 season. And then, remember, in training camp, that elbow injury cost him most of training camp. Remember Hard Knocks? Yeah. Where he wasn't basically on Hard Knocks much. It was like, who was it? It was like D'Angelo or something, right? Remember that guy? The little quarterback that was, juking and jiving out there and making plays. D'Angelo, something.
Is it Ben DiNucci?
DiNucci. Hey, DiNucci. Yeah. Yes. Yes. So I get it, man. Like, if you were Dak, and especially if he had a lead in most of those games, their positive game script was out of control last year. Their schedule was so easy. They had a plus 3.61 positive game script, which was second in the league, right? It was only the Bills had a greater average lead at any given point in a game than the Cowboys last year, because they were getting all these turnovers, led the league in turnover ratio. What does that mean? That means that it was very rare that Dak Prescott was asked to do much to win games. right? He wasn't asked to run much. And so he didn't. He only had 48 carries, right? He only had 1 rushing touchdown. But he did still finish top 10 in the league in red zone carries, still had 12 red zone carries. I think he's going to push something like he did in years prior, something closer to 20 red zone carries. I think he's going to have 4 to 5, 6 even rushing touchdowns because he's finally healthy and feeling good. And the schedule's getting a lot harder, which means it's not great news for Zeke. It's much better news for Dak Prescott and the entire passing game. They're going to have to throw more to win games this year. He is 29, so he's in his super prime, right? These were the best years of Tom Brady, the best years of Aaron Rodgers, the best years of Russell Wilson, age 28, age 29. This is when he's at his absolute peak of his powers. And the only thing he doesn't have that he had last year is Amari Cooper. So there's certainly been a weapon downgrade, but I think that the metric I'm looking at most is the pace of play. That even though they were running the ball, even though they were sitting on leads in the second half, playing against the Mike Glennon Giants, right? Oh, it was crazy. Some of the, I don't know, was the Colt McCoy Washington team. I don't even know who they were playing. Not only NFC East teams that were struggling and injured, but also NFC East teams without their starting quarterback. I think they played against Minshew once, against the Eagles. I mean, it was ridiculous how bad the schedule, how easy the schedule was, and how unincentive, there was a lack of incentive to throw the ball. And still, Dak finished last year with 20.7 fantasy points per game. And you know what he was in 2020? He was a league winner. He had 27.9 fantasy points per game. He was number 1 in the league in 2020. In those 5 games, he was absolute dynamite in those games. Why? Because he was running the ball more. He was rushing for more touchdowns in those games, just 5 games. And he had to throw the ball more. The pass rate was higher. But the beauty is, even though they were running the ball more and sitting on leads, the pace of play, 2.2 plays per minute last year, was still number 2 in the NFL. So this tells me that they could easily be the fastest paced offense in the league, right there with the Bills, right there with the Chargers. And if they're going to be fast paced, they're going to have to start to throw more, and he's going to be running more. And he already has a track record of being the number 1 quarterback in fantasy with a small sample. And then he was the number 3 quarterback in fantasy the year before that. Well, I mean, he did have 37 passing touchdowns in spite of all that. In spite of all those headwinds last year, still 37 passing touchdowns. So this guy, you're telling me he could go over 40 passing touchdowns easily and greater than 5 rushing touchdowns. So I think you're looking at the NFC MVP favorite. And right now, an underdog, his ADP is 87.5. And in a lot of drafts I'm in, he's going after Trey Lance. Get out of here. I mean, just get out of here. So let me get this straight. You're going to go with Trey Lance just because it's the allure of the unknown, when I have both the allure of the unknown, meaning he has an uncapped ceiling if they're in a lot of shootouts like they were 2 years ago. And we already know he's definitively great in all phases, where we have no idea really what Trey Lance is as a thrower.
Yeah, there's some great points. I mean, I just looked on Dak, and Dak has played 5 seasons where he played, more than 5 games, finished in the top 10 in 4 out of the 5 seasons. One season he was QB 14. Every other season that he was exactly where you said, top 10. He was number 2, QB 2 of the year before that, horrific leg injury. That's interesting. I don't know. I'm still going to go Trey Lance here. I still really like what Trey Lance did last year, albeit on a small sample size. The biggest thing that I go back to is his fantasy points per drop back, of how efficient he was when he's on the field scoring fantasy points. He had out of any player, he had the 3rd best overall.
How many games?
Player.
What is this based on? How many games?
This is on this is only on a few games last year.
How many's a few?
Like 4 or 5 games, 4 starts. If that was
4 starts last year?
Was it 3?
Was it 2? Was it 1?
It was like 2.5, 3.
What are you talking about? 2 games?
That's fair.
71 pass attempts.
Like
71 pass attempts is 2 games worth of pass attempts.
Okay, but he was a top 15 QB in every game that he played, albeit not a lot of games. Small sample size. Fine. I'll give you that. But what Trey Lance
he
does
played
half
a game against Seattle, and he was good in that game. Okay. He was good. He played a full game against Arizona, and he was not great. You know, both those games, 50% completion percentage, a little bit scary. Okay. And in none of those games was he even a top 10 quarterback in fantasy that week. The best he's done ever is be the QB 14 any given week, 20.4 fantasy points in week 4 against Seattle.
That was his best game.
I mean, kind of. I think the Houston game in week 17 was also good. At least in that game, he had a high completion percentage and a high yards per attempt. He just, didn't throw for a lot of yards, didn't do a lot of rushing in that game, didn't rush for any touchdowns.
But that's the thing with him. Okay, how about take over the last decade, 10 years. 10 years is a pretty long time. 92% of quarterbacks that averaged at least 7 rush attempts per game were top 10 quarterbacks in fantasy.
I love him as a top 10, but I'm talking about Dak Prescott being the QB1 overall and being just fucking awesome MVP. I'm so glad I drafted this guy, and I never was worried that I would have to drop him and go to the waiver wire.
But why? I know, but why couldn't Trey Lance do that same thing? I mean, Jalen Hurts was the QB1 through 11 weeks last year, throwing to way worse weapons. If Trey Lance can just be what Jalen Hurts was as a passer with better overall weapons, he could be the QB1 overall this year.
I mean, Jalen Hurts was great last year. I agree. That would be a great outcome. That's probably the best outcome, the ceiling outcome. 21.4 fantasy points per game. He was the QB6 in fantasy points per game. He was the QB9 in total fantasy points because he didn't play because he was running the ball. That's the other issue, is that probably Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, most quarterbacks that run the ball miss a few games. So that's the other issue. Now Dak's been hurt. Dak's had freak ankle injury, like we said, has suffered groin injuries, et cetera, weird elbow thing in training camp. So it's not like Dak Prescott is like Tom Brady in terms of durability. He's not. But this is finally an offseason that Dak has had without having to go through any rehabilitation, and he can just play. The other thing with Dak is we know he loves football. We know he put a football field in his backyard in Texas, and he has CeeDee Lamb. He has like a bunkhouse where wide receivers go to his house and they spend a week. They have like meals catered for them, right? He has like a second home set up for wide receivers to play football in his backyard in the offseason. This is the kind of player we're talking about. This is like everything you want. So that basically you're hoping to get Dak in terms of fantasy points from a guy that has a much lower floor.
I think, but
at the same ADP. You're wrong.
I just don't know if Dak is going to be able to do that this year. Like I agree with it. I think
you don't know. The uncertainty around Trey Lance is way higher. Oh my God. If I were betting, like, a Player X is going to have a top 10 fantasy season this year. You got to bet on one guy and it's for your life. Who are you going to bet on?
I'm betting on Trey Lance.
What? You can't with a straight face. It's for your life, Alex. It's for your life.
Michael Gallup is probably going to miss half the season.
How many times we've seen quarterbacks that we thought were awesome because of their rushing, and then it turned out, they're not. Yeah, there's fundamental issues with their throwing, and it's not like with Cleveland where they let Baker Mayfield go. They're very confident in Deshaun Watson and whoever's behind him, right? Jacoby Brissett. No. San Francisco's like, no, we're going to hold on to Jimmy. Thanks. We're not sure.
I don't know. Kyle Shanahan himself has said nothing but we're trading Jimmy. I have not seen any single player or executive on the team say that we might keep Jimmy. The other part of that is, again, Trey Lance doesn't need to be that good because he's getting, all the that double-digit rush attempts per game last year in the games that he played. But on top of that, it's a small sample size. That's fine. But he has the 2 best yards after the catch weapons since 2017. Kittle and Deebo Samuel have the 2 highest yards after the catch per reception numbers total since 2017. There's no players that are higher.
I think it's very possible that he puts up like 21, 22 fantasy points a game. I don't think the ceiling's as high as Dak, and the floor is scary. So I get it. Like,
but how is the
Dak weren't there at this ADP? Like, the fact that Dak's ADP is so inefficient and so just dumb, like, then that's the only reason this is even a conversation. Like, I would be with you 100% if there wasn't this glaring inefficiency in the market right now.
Okay, but with the glaring inefficiency that you're talking about with Trey Lance, for example, right? I'm with you on Dak. I'm not disagreeing on Dak at all. I just feel like we're at 2 different spots with Trey Lance. With Trey Lance, and like if he's averaging 10 rush attempts per game, like what quarterback has averaged over 7 rush attempts per game with weapons anywhere near the level that Trey Lance has and failed in fantasy football?
If they do trade Jimmy, listen, if they do trade Jimmy and I'm Kyle Shanahan, I am not letting him rush 10 times a game. That would be idiotic. If you have a playoff team and you're going to put your quarterback's health at risk by asking him to run the ball 10 plus times per game, you're just asking for what happened to Lamar Jackson to happen. You're asking what happened to Jalen Hurts to happen last year.
You're right, but that's not the way the NFL works.
Especially if you have all these weapons. So, but that's even more reason to temper expectations and be conservative with your rushing estimates. Certainly you can even project him to be one of the league leaders in rush attempts for quarterbacks, but
it's not how the NFL works. We haven't seen Lamar Jackson slow down in carries per game. We haven't seen Josh Allen slow down in carries per game. We've only seen Kyler slow down when he's been super nicked up. These quarterbacks do not stop their rushing. Should they? I agree with you. They should. For the playoffs, they should keep them healthy, but that's not the way the NFL works. They run these guys into the ground, and when Trey Lance is looking for a guy and he doesn't see someone downfield, he's taking off. He's not in his helmet thinking, oh, Kyle told me not to run. Let me just roll down and like get hit by someone. Lamar's numbers have not gone down, even though he's getting hurt every year. Josh Allen's numbers, even though he's like going to be one of the highest paid QBs in the league, his rushing numbers aren't going down every year. When the rushing is there, like you can't name a quarterback besides maybe 2020 Cam Newton at 30 years old that had that much rushing volume that did not produce in fantasy. I just said it. 92% of quarterbacks.
Josh Allen did dip to 421, and then his rushing yards bounced back the next year. And I'm willing to bet that they dip again this year after they saw how valuable he is, especially in the pocket and on the run behind the line of scrimmage. That's when he did most of, if not all of his damage. In those designed runs you saw from Josh Allen in the playoffs, those were wasted plays. So I do not believe, I think the NFL, it would probably have seen the peak of these designed runs by quarterbacks that don't accomplish much except getting these quarterbacks hurt. So I just, knowing that they're not efficient plays, I wouldn't just bet on the NFL having cognitive dissonance. I would worry a little bit about the possibility that, same with Josh Allen, like my expectations for Josh Allen a little bit lower because I'm not than maybe consensus, because I'm not sure he's going to run the ball at that rate this year. I think the Eagles go out and they get extra weapons like A.J. Brown so that they don't put Jalen Hurts at risk as much as they did in previous years. We'll see what happens, man.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Right. But I think that
I got one question for you.
The all-purpose quarterbacks, right, that do it all, that have the rushing ability, but also are prolific passers, like a Justin Herbert and like a Dak Prescott, those are my favorite archetype of quarterbacks.
Okay. I just have one question, though. I hear what you're saying about, maybe Josh Allen will probably run less this year because he's played a couple seasons, but I think most people would agree that Trey Lance's best weapon are his legs. I think that's pretty consensus. He's probably better on his legs than he is on his arms. So if I'm Kyle Shanahan, I'm trading away Jimmy Garoppolo, and I just traded up 2 or 3 first-round picks to get Trey Lance. Am I saying, hey, Trey, I know your legs are your best weapon. Let's not run, and let's just try to throw the ball and make you do something that you don't want to do. That's not how that's not going to happen. If they traded up 3 first-round picks, they're not going to say, hey, let's not use your best weapon, and let's just make you look like to be an idiot by not letting you run. That's not what's going to happen. Okay, one other question then with that.
Well,
There's no second-year quarterback like that that's in his first season starting that they're going to limit like that. Even if they want to do that later, 3 or 4 years from now, that's not the problem.
right.
But this year with Trey Lance, in his first season starting in the NFL, they're not going to hold him back. Year 2, year 3, after he goes crazy and he shows he's a good quarterback, fine. But not in the first season when we get to see if he has it or not. And
let's see if he has it or not.
But that's why he's going to run.
Why can't we see if he has it or not?
That's exactly why he's going to run this year, because they're going to see whether he has it or not.
We're going to see if he has it or not.
And we'll see. We'll see. But we're going to have to come back.
Dak Prescott has it.
Dak absolutely has it. That is totally the point here. But let's move on to running backs. I'm excited to hear who you have here, and hopefully we can, hopefully this one we will agree a little bit more. Who is your running back you think could be a league winner this year?
Oh God, it's always Tony Pollard. I know it's annoying. It's always Tony Pollard. I get it that it's just I keep going back to for all the same reasons I love Dak. I also love Tony Pollard because I think he's going to be playing more in the slot. He's going to be running a lot of routes, and also that Ezekiel Elliott's efficiency nosedive last year. Now that was because he was playing with the torn PCL, but he was playing with the torn PCL last year. Yeah. So I'm sure his legs didn't gain explosiveness after playing on a torn ligament for weeks and months. Okay. So if anything, he's probably going to come into camp and start the season even less explosive than he did last year. It's not like, guys with this kind of mileage that are now well past the age apex are always and forever fades in fantasy football. They're just absolute fades. Unless you can get them in like round 10, like Leonard Fournette last year, then fine. Right. But if they're in like the dead zone round 4, oh my God, David Montgomery, Ezekiel Elliott, Josh Jacobs, get out of here. Just get out of here with all these guys. They're not going to make a difference. They're not going to be a guy that you look back on and go like, yeah, that was the key to victory right there. No way. Absolutely not. Right. So if I'm drafting a guy in that zone so let's assume we have Pollard. Okay. Because I think that he earns a bigger role this year. And because they lost Amari Cooper, they're going to have to put him out in motion more and have him play more in the slot, even out wide. I think he's going to be just this total incredible weapon this year. And also the ability to stay healthy is driven by, a lack of touches. Okay. So the more touches you get, the more likely you are to go down. That's the Derrick Henry rule. Okay. No matter how big and strong you are, the more touches they give you, the more likely you are to go down. So as tough as Zeke is, the more they feed him, the more likely he is to go down. The less they feed him, the more likely Pollard is to score fantasy points. Think about that for a second. That's the case for Pollard right there. Because if he's not in there getting significant carries early in the season, that ramps up Zeke's chances of getting hurt. If he is in there as a more than a breather back, as almost a 50-50 split, then you're loving life because Pollard's getting most of the targets in that scenario and probably scoring some long touchdowns. So you're loving life in that scenario. No matter what the scenario, he wins either way. Pollard wins either way. Okay. And in a similar way, you could also look at A.J. Dillon, because A.J. Dillon's going after Breece Hall, after ETN, right? ETN and Breece Hall are the easy ones because clearly they're like epic mega talents. They check all these boxes. They're comp to like LaDainian Tomlinson and Cam Akers and Eric Dickerson and all the best running backs back through time, Breece Hall and Travis Etienne. And these guys are epic talents, right? And it's just a question of, will their offenses ascend? One of the Jets or the Jaguars is going to take a big step forward this year. Probably the Jets, but it also could be the Jaguars just on the strength of Trevor Lawrence, because and he sort of takes his rightful place, right? So if Trevor Lawrence takes his rightful place, it's ETN to the moon. If just the preponderance of weaponry that's been upgraded in New York, if that really wins the day, then it's going to be Breece Hall. But once those guys are off the board, the young backs with juice, not the James Connors of the world that you're just avoiding, You want young backs with juice. The guy that goes a little bit later than those guys, but also before Pollard, is A.J. Dillon. And he's big, he's strong, and we have an app called the Breakout Finder. It's in the App Store, and it sets a probability that any given college player breaks out. And for running backs, the cheat code is, are you big with soft hands? Big running backs with soft hands are the easiest path to breaking out in the NFL, because you're going to get the most valuable touches. You're going to get touches inside the 5-yard line. You're going to get touches in the passing game. Check for A.J. Dillon.
Yeah.
Right. If they don't give him enough carries early on, well, that's going to increase the probability that Aaron Jones gets hurt. If they give him like 60% of the carries, then it's game on. He's going to be breaking away for touchdowns. It's going to be crazy. So again, with Pollard and Dillon, it's like they can't lose. They're in no lose situations, especially because both of those offenses have had their wide receiver cores significantly degraded, right? No teams have lost more wide receiver talent in the last year than the Packers and, the Cowboys. You could argue the Chiefs losing Hill, the Packers losing Adams, and the Cowboys losing Cooper without significantly backfilling those players. Okay, Christian Watson. Okay, Sky Moore. Okay, Jalen Tolbert. Okay. All right, these are day 2 picks. I love Jalen Tolbert, but get out of here. He's not Amari Cooper.
I agree.
So, this helps Dillon. This means the law of the conservation of targets tells you Dillon's going to get more targets. Pollard's going to get more targets. And, some running back on the Chiefs is going to get more targets. Maybe even Ronald Jones. Who knows?
Yeah, seriously. Okay, I agree with A.J. Dillon. I'm with you every day of the week in A.J. Dillon. I'm drafting him all the time. Pollard is where I'm having a little bit of trouble, and I don't hate the talent of Pollard. Pollard's obviously better than Zeke at this point in his career, but he's creeping up to running back 27 right now in underdog, which is basically saying, okay, for one, Zeke's missed one game in his career. I agree with you. If Zeke goes down, Pollard's a steal. Pollard's a league winner. Absolutely, if Zeke goes down.
But Zeke's probability of getting hurt is very high. That's the problem. That's the fallacy that Zeke is this super durable guy. No. We have an injury finder that's about to hit the App Store right now. And I can tell you the things that drive injuries, first and foremost, are total touches. And he also has an injury history. If he was playing hurt last year and they're going to ramp up the touches again this year, he's going down, dude. He's going down. Okay, and if he doesn't, they're going to have to wind down his carries, because Pollard was one of the most efficient running backs in the league, and Zeke was one of the least efficient.
But they're
going to need efficiency out of the running back position because they've downgraded the wide receiver core. Again, all roads lead to Pollard.
I think there's still a problem with that, unfortunately, there, and it's the political thing. It's like politics the same way right now, where this politics comes into play in this situation, even though it shouldn't, where they should just give a lot more work to Pollard, but it's not going to. Because Zeke gets paid 18 times more. Jerry Jones is still the head coach of this team that says that we're going to feed Zeke. That's all they've said all offseason, is that we're still going to feed Zeke. Should they? No. Should they scale back his workload? Yes. But are they going to do that? I don't think so. Pollard still
had a 23-point game, a 14-point game, a 10-point game, a 16-point game, a 17-point game, a 15-point game, and a 12-point game last year. He was still usable on any given week in the flex position, and those touches are only going to go up because it's only so long, right? I know you say politics, but most of the time the NFL is a meritocracy, and even if it's 5%. Even if his opportunity share goes up 5%, that's still significant.
But why Pollard over Kareem Hunt and Chase Edmonds?
Ugh, what?
Over those guys?
Kareem Hunt? Kareem Hunt is not on the Cowboys. I just got done talking about Dak Prescott. The way to maximize your fantasy points is to have players on the best offenses with the highest pass rates and pace of play. So this means you're going to have more drives. You're going to have more red zone visits. You're going to have more total touches for all the offensive weapons. So no, I'm not here for, I think Kareem Hunt is more of a 1B than even Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard's more explosive, has been more efficient the last couple seasons. And even once Watson comes back, it's probably still going to be a little bit more of a run first offense in Cleveland. And that's just not the path to fantasy points. And Chase Edmonds, yes, I love Chase Edmonds. I don't know if Chase Edmonds on that team with Tua at quarterback and a sort of he lacks the history of being able to seize the number one job out from under what is a lesser talent. So I'm a little bit more skeptical of Chase being able to seize that number one job outright. Okay. Like, so for example, like I think he caps out at a 55% opportunity share. Yep. No matter what the running backs are in Miami, he's going to be getting a 55% opportunity share, which is going to be great. Okay, that's going to be like top 20 running back type opportunity share in an improved offense. Oh, yeah. He'll be getting dump offs from Tua. Tua keeps the ball close to the line of scrimmage. I think that that's going to be his path to being a high-end RB2. But with Pollard, in those games that Zeke misses, he is going to be the most heavily owned and rostered running back in all of DFS. He's going to be a favorite to be able scoring 30 fantasy points a game in those games because they have no one behind him, and they're going to have to feed him 80%. And there, at no point do I feel like, is there going to be a game where Chase Edmonds gets 80% of the opportunities? I can't see it.
Okay, and that's fair. With Kareem Hunt, for one, I think no matter what the offense looks like, it favors him. For one, if Jacoby Brissett's the quarterback, he had the lowest yards per attempt last year of any quarterback in the NFL. That favors Kareem Hunt. If their defense isn't good, they're losing a lot of games because Jacoby Brissett's the quarterback. That favors Kareem Hunt because they don't like Chubb in on passing downs. Hunt will be in on the passing downs. If Deshaun Watson's there, then they have the good offense. He's the 1B that's been a top 20 points per game running back. All 5 seasons of his career, he's been a top 20 points per game running back. So no matter what the offense looks like, whoever the quarterback is, it still favors Kareem Hunt because they're either in a good offense or one where they don't want to throw the ball and they'll be trailing more, which favors Kareem Hunt.
In the last 3 seasons in Cleveland, he's never had 14 fantasy points or more. I mean, he's been a top 25 running back in fantasy points per game. If you count 12.7 fantasy points per game as being the RB25, I mean, okay.
But it's the same thing with Zeke though. It is not the same.
He's behind Chubb, man. Chubb actually is in his prime and is super explosive and is not dusty at all. Chubb's a second round pick in fantasy for a reason.
Yeah, but when you talk about injuries, Chubb's been missing a lot more games than Zeke has. Zeke's due, but if Zeke is playing on a torn PCL, what is it going to take for Zeke to sit down? If he plays through a torn PCL,
but I don't have the numbers in front of me. My guess would be that Zeke has a higher injury probability than Chubb.
Oh, I agree.
But there's no probability that anyone wakes up in week 10 and suddenly Hunt's out touching Chubb because Chubb's just been so ineffective. It's just not happening and they can't afford to lose games because of him. That's absolutely a possibility with the Zeke Pollard dynamic.
And that's fine. But the other thing with Chase Edmonds though is 1, he's in that good offense. 2, he catches passes. 3, I agree with you. He's never going to get 80% of the work. But he was someone I know you were in on last year in Arizona.
Big time, man. I'm in on Edmonds 100%. But you can't call him a league winner. I need a path
Chase
to like 75. Let's call it 70% of the touches.
Yeah,
and pretty much hogging the touches inside the 5 and in the passing game. And there's a path for Pollard. I mean, there is a path for Hunt if Chubb goes down, but I mean that's we'll see. And for Edmonds, I don't see that path. I also don't think that the Miami Dolphins are an offense you should be investing in. I think most Dolphins, except Edmonds, are a hard fade this year. Edmonds is only a buy because he's such a ridiculous value. He's such a screaming value.
But that's
kind of Scott Fishbowl for that reason. I'm like, this guy's an all-purpose skill set, and he's going like, he just now crossed into the top 100 on Underdog. I mean, Chubb, please give me that guy all day.
And that's the point I'm trying to make. I'm not saying these guys are better league winners, but both Hunt and Edmonds are cheaper than Pollard is. Like right now, it goes A.J. Dillon, running back 24, Gibson 25, and then Pollard at 27. Right. That's where I don't like Pollard. Kareem Hunt is going at running back 31, Chase Edmonds at 32. I like those.
Give me
guys.
Edmonds over Hunt all day.
Yeah, because Edmonds
is also more explosive. See,
Okay, but
the problem is Hunt's perception is skewed by those years in Kansas City where they had an awesome offensive line and Patrick Mahomes, where he ran at his pro day, he ran a 4.640. I mean, the guy's not that explosive. I mean, he has a nice burst score, but athletically, Kareem Hunt's not that impressive.
Yeah.
And what our perception of his athleticism is absolutely skewed by those days in Kansas City. Now that we see what he is in Cleveland, yeah, he's a nice back. He's good. Yeah, he's fine. Yeah, he's putting up 4.2 yards per carry. Yeah, he has some nice efficiency metrics. Like, okay, he's pretty good juke rate, pretty good breakaway run rate, pretty good yards created. Not bad, right? And he's solid. He's just a solid running back, but he's not this super special talent like what we saw in the Chiefs system, primarily driven by a top offensive line and one of the top quarterbacks in the league. The last time he played, a full season, it was 2020. He played, he had a 50% snap share right down the middle. His yards created per touch, 2.86, ranked number 17 in the league on Player Profiler. He had just a 3% breakaway run rate, but he did evade tackles. His yards per touch was 4.9, number 37. But he did have a nice, evaded tackles per touch was 31%. That was top 5. So he is a good running back. I think he has great vision and good tackle breaking ability, but explosive runs are not actually his specialty.
Yeah, and they don't need to be. Right now, Hunt and Edmonds are going around later than Pollard. I'm just more willing to buy them at price. I agree. Pollard is the best league-winning running back out of all of them. I will move on to my league-winning running back. My league-winning running back is Breece Hall. I don't see how Breece Hall isn't a league winner besides his offense. He's one of 6 running backs to ever earn a 99 grade from Next Gen Stats. The other 5 are Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Melvin Gordon, and Travis Etienne. Second highest athletic.
Melvin Gordon?
So, yeah.
Oh my God. This is why how Next Gen Stats loses all credibility. But Melvin Gordon was only as efficient as he was in college because of the Wisconsin offensive line. Melvin Gordon did not deserve it. Whatever. I don't know what that's based on, but that is ridiculous.
Like Next Gen
99 for Melvin Gordon at Wisconsin. Get out of here. Get out of here, Next Gen.
Whether you like them or not.
The other ones I agree with.
Every running back to ever get a 90-plus grade from Next Gen Stats has a top 12 season in fantasy. Every single one. 100%. Hasn't been a single miss so far. Right. And the guys that haven't played are Breece Hall and Travis Etienne.
Just give a 99 grade to every first-round running back, and every first-round running back always gets those numbers because they get fed. Yep. Josh Jacobs.
Well, then the other thing with Breece Hall is, again, we've seen a rookie running back finish in the top 15 10 straight years, top 10 9 out of the last 10 years. We've seen a rookie running back finish top 6 in 5.
Dude, you're preaching to the choir on this one.
Yeah.
The better question is, beyond Kenneth Walker, who I do not recommend drafting because he's a Seahawk. Gross.
100%.
Right? I mean, you want great players and great offenses, ideally. Where would you go in terms of sleeper running backs? Because I drafted pretty much every sleeper running back in the Scott Fish Bowl in the second half of that draft.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite in terms of 3rd, 4th, 5th round?
3rd, 4th, 5th round of running backs right now for rookies? Just straight up rookie running backs? Oh, man, that is a tough question. I think
I have the answer. It's actually Rachaad White.
Oh, absolutely. I was thinking after Rachaad White because he's so obvious.
3rd round.
Yeah, 100% I'm going Rachaad White.
Really? He's that obvious?
He's amazing. He's amazing.
I think Rachaad White, because he's going so late, and that's, again, this is a similar concept. Now, Leonard Fournette was not nearly as inefficient last year as Ezekiel Elliott, but he keeps showing up out of shape. He keeps pushing the envelope in terms of, this guy, he's big boned. He carries a lot of weight in the offseason, a lot of water weight, whatever. Rachaad White is a stud. Rachaad White was a stud at Arizona State. He was a stud before that. He was a stud when he was living out of his car to go to community college because he had to get away from the environment he was in Kansas. Moved to California, and pretty much had no friends, knew nobody, lived out of his car so he could afford to go to a college on his own dime. And then he earned a scholarship to Arizona State. This guy loves the game. He's super athletic. He's an incredible all-purpose talent. He's the guy I'm most excited to see in preseason.
Agree.
I want to see, it's possible. I know it sounds crazy, and Brady is not going to trust anyone but Fournette. Maybe. But, he was drafted in the 3rd round. So he has the day 2 capital, and we saw the 49ers entrust the offense to Elijah Mitchell, an undersized 6th round pick last year. So I'm not saying that he's going to like steal Fournette's job, but if they feed Fournette at such a high rate, Fournette has a history of hamstring injuries, high ankle sprain, foot injuries, knee injuries. So listen, we'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens, but that's the offense. It's that talent. It's that offense where even if like it's not looking great after a couple weeks and he's just getting, sprinkled in as a breather back and he's unstartable, do not drop him under any circumstances. That's my only advice.
I agree, especially if Fournette goes down. I think Rashad
do not drop him.
Yeah, I think he could legitimately be like a top 5 running back this year after Leonard Fournette goes down. I think that's the ceiling of it, especially as the pass catching ability. I think Rashad White's amazing. You're also preaching.
Remember
to the
last
choir.
year they drafted Javonte Williams.
Yeah,
and they already had Melvin Gordon, and then all of a sudden it's a 50-50 split right out of the gate. I'm not saying it's going to be a 50-50 split in Tampa, but it's not like they signed Fournette to like an Ezekiel Elliott mega deal.
Yep.
Right.
He's only getting like $7 million a year.
Yeah. I mean,
he's getting less than Melvin Gordon got paid last year. For reference.
I mean, it's not like I'm not necessarily like I know that Fournette's been moving up boards and he's creeping into the early 2nd round, but I think that Joe Mixon's job is safer. I think that who's also in a top offense, he's not going to catch as many passes, but he could score a lot more touchdowns than Fournette this year. I think Barkley's job is more secure, and Barkley has more explosive upside. So, and I'm not as in on Fournette. I've been super in on Fournette for 2 straight years, right? Round 4, round 5, every day, 2 years ago, all the time. Yeah. Ronald Jones, get out of here. Right. Same with last year. Oh my God. 10th round. Oh my God. A gift. Right. Early 2nd round for Fournette. Well,
yeah, I'm with you 100%. I'm not that in on him, but
the other thing is when I'm drafting there, I seem like I can always get DeAndre Swift. So I'm going that direction.
Yep. Agree. I like Swift in that position of it as well. But let's move on to wide receivers. That's a great breakdown at running back. Some good debates there. But the wide receivers is where this could get a little bit dicey. Oh wait, never mind. Maybe not as much because I think you'll like my league winner. Oh, if I may, I'll start off with this one.
League winner. Oh God, I don't know, man. I don't know. I haven't agreed with anything you've said yet.
This is not who you think it is. It's not who you think it is. I had a different person on my show sheet here. This guy I actually might change to my flag plant this year. He might be the guy for me that I bet on more than anyone else in all of fantasy football.
Can I guess?
Yeah, you can guess.
Can I guess who it is?
Sure.
Oh, man. I don't want to guess mine. I'm going to say Elijah Moore.
It is not Elijah Moore.
Okay, go ahead.
It is a 2nd round wide receiver, and it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. And if you don't see the breakout, it is going to come this year. Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of 15 players to ever hit an 80-plus PFF grade as a rookie. 100% of these players had a top 12 season by their 4th year. So Amon-Ra would be a historical outlier if he doesn't hit a top 12 season. He's also the wide receiver 5 in fantasy football over the second half of 2021. Not 4 games like Rashad Penny, not 5 games, not 6 games, a literal half a fantasy football season. The only players with more points were Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, and Deebo Samuel. And he's elite at commanding targets. It wasn't just the last stretch. He had a 21.4% target share. He was targeted at an even higher rate in the red zone. And usually Players with this high of a target share almost always improve in their second year. Don't forget the fact that every game the Lions won last year, Amon-Ra St. Brown had at least 10 targets.
And he was top 12 in yards after the catch.
And he was top 12 in yards after the catch. And
that's big, man. That's big. If you can get the targets, you get the yards after the catch, then hey, you don't need the air yards. The one thing he doesn't do, he doesn't get downfield, right?
But he doesn't
need catchable target rate was really high last year. Probably unsustainable. 85% catchable target rate, likely unsustainable. But that's what Jared Goff's good at. You have a good match. You have Amon-Ra from Southern California, Jared Goff from Southern California. And they're a perfect match for one another. He's getting open in the areas of the field where Jared Goff likes to throw the ball.
Yep, agree. And the other thing, though, is the beat reporters have had a consistent drumbeat. This offense can run through him. They said that this is Dan Campbell's perfect type of. If they said if a wide receiver could be created in a lab, it would be Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't know about that.
I've used that line so many times. They're stealing my line.
Yeah, but the thing is, they said they want to run this offense through him. That he's going to be their guy, that he's going to get at minimum at least 6 targets a game, if not more.
He's an animal.
He's an animal.
61% catchable, contested catch conversion rate. That was top 10 in the league. He's an animal. He's like an explosive version of Jarvis Landry.
Explosive Jarvis. What about so what do you think about the people that say he's just Cooper Kupp light, Bud Light Cooper Kupp?
Okay. No. What?
I've heard
Bud Light. I hear the hyperbole around Trey Lance and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Dude, calling a guy explosive Jarvis Landry is a huge compliment. That's not a big enough compliment for you people.
I guess not. I hear Bud Light Cooper Kupp all the time.
Bud Light, what does that mean? Bud Light Cooper Kupp.
It just means like Walmart brand Cooper Kupp, like a regular trash brand, not a name brand Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, that's not.
He's like
Cooper Kupp had like 30 fantasy points a game last year. What are we talking about?
He's like Diet Cooper Kupp.
No, he's not. That's ridiculous hyperbole. Comparing him to Cooper Kupp. That's also setting him up to fail. I hate doing that to guys like that.
Yeah.
Like Jarvis Landry had multiple seasons in the top 12. And he got there how? Contested catches, close to the line of scrimmage, and yak. And in those years where he scored, above average touchdown rate, given his targets and given the target depth, those are the years he was a wide receiver 1. Is Amon-Ra St. Brown going to come anywhere close to like 150 catches and 2,000 yards? I mean, no. Come on, he's a possession receiver. Get real.
Oh, interesting nugget for you. Jarvis Landry in his second season, wide receiver 8.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm helping you. I'm helping you, Alex, but you lose credibility when you comp to fucking Cooper Kupp.
I didn't comp him to Cooper Kupp. I was just saying what the people say. I'm just saying what I read on Twitter.
Oh, just what the people say.
That's what the people say.
That's not what you said. No, people say.
I think
people say. I didn't say anything. People say.
I say Diet Cooper Kupp.
People say you're wrong. You shouldn't do that to him. It's unfair to what you're doing to him. I disagree with what you're doing. You're setting it up to fail. Explosive Jarvis Landry is a way better best case scenario for Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Okay, I like that. Who is your league winning wide receiver?
Explosive Keenan Allen.
Explosive Keenan Allen.
Yeah. So if you have explosive Jarvis Landry, I get explosive Keenan Allen.
Who is that?
My player is actually better than your player.
Oh no.
And they're in similar situations, very similar situations, where the only other wide receivers are really competing for targets with is a tight end.
Can I guess?
Sure.
Oh wait, no, this is obvious. If it's only competing with a tight end, it's Juju. I'm kidding. It's Rashad Bateman. That's my guess.
Of course it's Rashad Bateman. Yes. Ding, 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 ding. You got it, Alex. Nice job.
Thanks.
Yes, it's Rashad Bateman. He's amazing. He's explosive Keenan Allen. There's nothing else to say. Everything that Amon-Ra is good at, he's good at. He's just a little bit bigger, a little more explosive, a little bit earlier draft capital, a little bit better offense, just a little bit better in every way. That's all. No big deal.
I like that. Explosive. So you said explosive Keenan Allen is Rashad Bateman. But what's Rashad Bateman's ceiling this year? Oh, actually, did you know? Hold on. Did you know that this is interesting? This is a stat that's probably not relevant to fantasy football. There has not been a top 12 wide receiver on the Baltimore Ravens since the 90s. I think it was 94 if I have that right.
Now that their number 2 receiver is Devin Duvernay, it's very much in play. The target distribution has been super consolidated down to 2 guys. 2 guys. Okay. That's what I'm loving. I love consolidated target shares, and I think that they're gonna open an offense back up just like they did in 2019. I think we're looking at an MVP. I think MVP, AFC MVP, Lamar Jackson, NFC MVP, Dak Prescott, not Trey Lance. And part of the reason why is going to be upside, best case scenario, Rashad Bateman, wide receiver 6.
Okay. Wide receiver.
Face. Well, no, Mike Evans. I think we're going to look up, and it could be close for wide receiver 7 between CeeDee Lamb and Rashad Bateman. Watch it happen.
Wow. CeeDee Lamb and Rashad.
Yeah, they're in very similar situations. One guy is Schultz, the other guy is Andrews. One guy's the clear number 1. What, going on a team with a great running game. But the ADP differential is huge. One guy's going early, or not the early second round, late first round. The other guy's going to the 5-6 turn. Give me Bateman, baby.
I love that. That's a great take. I think that's fantastic.
I mean, what about upside? I'm not saying I'm not saying he's gonna, but I mean, is it even feasible, conceivable that he reaches like a Diggs, Evans, Adams level? No, I'm not saying that, but just the next level down. Sure.
I like that. What about tight ends though? I think that's the hardest position to actually pick a real true league winner here, of someone that is not thought of to be a league winner and having to pick it. Because I mean, every year it happens. There's some clown, or not clown because they're good players, but someone that finds their way out of the middle round 2 tight ends that finds their way into the top 3. Do you have a guy for this year?
Is Ertz going too early for this?
Ertz is probably going slightly too early for this.
I mean, you want a guy a little bit deeper in the double-digit rounds. You'd rather have that guy like the first year Kittle broke out, someone like that. Round 13, round 14, end of the draft. Just wait on tight end till the very end. 2 guys in mind after Ertz, because Ertz is going to be a smash early. Everyone's going to be playing Ertz in DFS with Hopkins out. It's going to be wild. Yeah,
he's the tight end 10 and underdog.
Yeah, but I mean, in DFS, he's going to be chalk. I mean, it's going to be wild. So, but bottom line there is it's either Irv Smith or Albert Kuigbunam. With a Kuigbunam, there's a lot of target competition because they've drafted Dulcich, who's probably the best move tight end in the class. And then you've got Judy, Patrick, and Sutton. But I think that there's a possibility Judy just totally flames out. If that happens, especially if there's an injury to any of those 3 receivers, and there probably will be, most teams, there's a significant wide receiver injury to someone goes down at some point. I think that's when a Kuigbunam really pops, but it's not. I mean, Dulcich is going to have a role, but I think in the red zone, it's going to be Sutton and Albert O. I think that Albert O he was so good that he was commanding targets at a higher rate when on the field than Noah Fant. And then the team saw this and they traded Noah Fant. So, man, how he ended up falling to the 4th round is one of the great mysteries, because there were well-renowned, well-regarded NFL draft analysts that had Gil Brandt, for example, had a Kuigbunam as their number 1 tight end in the class. So that was interesting to see how he fell. It was one of the more bizarre drops. It was kind of like Amon-Ra St. Brown falling to the 4th round. Like, what? How did that happen? Just kind of like fell through a crack of the universe.
What about someone that I think I was not in on until pretty recently, and that's someone like Hayden Hurst. I think is interesting because why not?
No, I mean he's not explosive enough. You look at all the great tight ends, the big breakout tight ends. The one consistency they have is 90th percentile athleticism. Okay. If you want to go deeper than Albert O, then I would go to David Njoku, because David Njoku has that, and he signed a mega contract. He signed like a contract that legit blew my hair back for a guy that hasn't done a goddamn thing, but he's only 26. He's one of the better yak tight ends in the league, one of the most athletic tight ends in the league. And then to see the team jettison Austin Hooper and decide to give David Njoku a monster contract, this was something you have to. Contracts are important. You got to pay attention to those in fantasy football. So, knowing that, seeing that, let's see. So the David Njoku contract he's getting $19 million even in 2025. The out is in 2025 when he's supposed to get $19 million. But between now and then, his cap hit's going to be $8.3 million and then $18.3 million. And they're not going to be able to get out until 2025 when they're going to owe him $19.1 million. He had $17 million guaranteed. They know something about him. And if there's a massive quarterback upgrade, then I love Njoku very late. But, I mean, Albert O has a 100th percentile speed score, right? It has the size, the athleticism. He fits that Gronk, Kelsey, Kittle archetype where the guy can block. He's going to be on the field 100% of the snap shares. That means he's going to be in there in all these different packages around the red zone. He can get down the seam. He can break tackles. I mean, it's just that's your guy. Albert O is the guy to get. He's the sexy pick.
What's a move tight end? You talked about Dulcich being a move tight end. Does that mean that Albert O?
Move tight ends are more like Irv Smith, where they're slight, usually sub 250 pounds.
Yeah.
They're more of a route runner out of the slot. They're not in the game oftentimes in these heavier packages, so they miss out on touchdowns. They have a deeper target depth. And in certain scenarios, especially if there's a lack of talent in the wide receiver core, like you saw with Darren Waller, those types of players can pop because they're never called on to block. And if there is injuries to the wide receivers or just a talent deficient wide receiver core, then a move tight end can really elevate. The problem is for Irv Smith, Jefferson's there, Thielen's there. Even KJ Osborne broke out a little bit last year. Amir Smith-Marset had a 100-yard game out of the slot. He's I think an underrated slot receiver.
But why
they have great running backs out of the backfield catching passes. So it's you have to squint a little bit to see Irv Smith, but I think that offense is going to be so prolific, and that's what I'm looking for. I want these prolific offenses, whether it's Minnesota, Denver. That's why I'm a little more into Albert O and Irv than I am David Njoku, because I don't want to be all in on a roller coaster offense, flip-flopping quarterbacks, and generally speaking, preferring the running game.
That's where I don't get the Albert O thing, and I'm having a little bit of trouble with. The Irv Smith, I totally agree with you. There's a lot of competition, and I know that Denver doesn't have the greatest wide receivers, but you said they jettisoned Noah Fant, fair. But after they jettisoned Noah Fant, they didn't say it's the Albert O show. They said, okay, let us bring in a route-running tight end that we want on the field for passing plays.
I mean, that's a rookie tight end. I mean, he's not Kyle Pitts. Come on.
That's true. That's absolutely true. But like you said, that these wide receivers that are athletic break out with bad wide receiver, like when they have bad wide receivers. And I think Sutton, Judy, and Patrick are solid. I don't think any of those guys are world beaters. But where does Albert O break out if they draft a route running tight end that could see the field early, even if it's just 25%?
Dulcich isn't the reason to fade Albert O. No.
Okay. No, but what about the rest of the wide receivers there?
I just don't think that I'm not worried about Patrick or Judy ascending to be like a peanut butter and jelly situation wide receiver duo, right? The issue for the tight end is if it's like the problem with Kelsey. I mean, the problem with Kittle, I should say, is that, Ayuk being as good as he is with Samuel in a low volume run first offense, it target starves the tight end.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't see that happening in Denver. They have the two great running backs, but I do think that because it's the AFC West, generally speaking, I want everyone in the AFC West, except for like Judy and Josh Jacobs and like maybe like one or two other players, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, I can count like 5 or 6 players in the AFC West I don't want. I literally want all the rest. Give me all the Mike Williams. Give me all the Albert O. Give me all the Sutton. Give me all the Devontae Adams. Give me all the Renfro. Give me the Waller. Give me the Derek Carr. I mean, give me the
Sky Moore.
Russell Wilson, give me the Sky Moore, give me the Justin Herbert, give me them all of them. AFC West, it's going to be crazy. The shootouts that happen in the AFC West are going to be so much fun. All these late games we're going to get. I mean, this is the case for Ronald Jones, that he could score 12 touchdowns.
Yep.
Absolutely. You need to be in on the AFC West in a very, very big way. It's why I like Melvin Gordon, right? I know that Javonte Williams is a very expensive ADP, especially for a 50-50 committee back. To have a late second round ADP is pretty wild, but he was very efficient, and he's in the right offense, in the right division, and he's got plenty of juice at a young age. So I get the upside case for Javonte Williams. I'm generally not spending up for Javonte, given that I don't think the probability that Melvin Gordon gets injured is very high, because they're going to be in a 50-50 split. And like I talked about, touches are the main driver of injuries. So there's sort of a paradox where with Javonte at his ADP, you're really betting on a Melvin Gordon injury, but because Melvin Gordon is getting sort of just enough carries to stay fresh, but not enough to really be taxed to a place where he goes down,
I don't know.
The probability that Melvin Gordon gets hurt is a lot lower than someone like a Zeke or a Fournette. So the case for Javonte is a little bit he's much better in best ball.
There's a really interesting case for Javonte here. I actually just talked about it on another podcast pretty recently, and I didn't get it with Javonte at ADP. I was with you for most of the offseason.
What's the case
and then
beyond a Melvin Gordon injury?
My eyes started to open a little bit. Well, for one, it's this. Starting off with that, Javonte Williams had the highest broken tackle rate of any running back since 2006, rookie or not. That's obviously a great stat. That's fantastic.
But he's not that. I mean, he's not that. I know he had like quote unquote a high explosive run rate, but that was a lot of that was driven by the offensive line. Okay, he's actually not that fast. He only ran a 4.57 at his 40 time. So it's kind of like a Kareem Hunt situation. The breakaway run rate for him was only 3.9% in terms of the number of runs that were 15 yards or greater. If you just count like, explosive runs in quotes being 10 yards or greater, then the percentage goes way up. But a lot of those runs are primarily driven by gaping holes from the offensive line. Once you move the bar to 15 yards, then the breakaway run rate comes down. But certainly his juke rate last year, which is evaded tackles per touch, not just broken tackles, because broken tackles is not a great measurement of talent either, because a lot of running backs like Ronald Jones run to contact, and that jacks up their broken tackle rate. Whereas the metric on Player Profiler called juke rate actually looks at broken tackles and evaded tackles, and he was top 10, but he wasn't like number one in the league by any means.
There's still more of a case for Javonte. And I think there's still more that's being completely overlooked. I mean, for one, this is not the best argument for him. Again, he had 29 points the one game Melvin Gordon missed. I know that was not against a good team, whatever you can do with that. But you said two things. Well, there's two things here that are important. Number one, you said that contracts matter. You should be paying attention to how much guys are getting paid. They dropped Melvin Gordon's salary from $8 million all the way down to $2 million. Because they don't need to pay him. Someone else could have given it to him, but they stuck him there. And they didn't sign him right away. They weren't saying, oh my goodness, we need Melvin Gordon. We need to sign him right away. No, they waited, but it gets better. This is the thing that I felt like I made the mistake with Jonathan.
But do you think they're not going to feed Melvin Gordon at all?
This is the last piece of it. And obviously this is different situations, but I feel like this is where we made the same mistake with Jonathan Taylor. Javonte, who's not known as a pass catcher, was the running back 17 in PPR last year. That's where he finished. Running back 17, and now he's going
in fantasy points per game, though, it was only 12.1. It's number 22 in the league.
Okay, but at the same time, though, like Javonte never exceeded 60% of the snaps in a game, where Melvin Gordon had at least 40 plus every time.
I know, exactly.
Okay, but they don't sign Melvin Gordon right away. They drop his salary by almost 70%. And there's whispers coming out, according to one of my colleagues, the football guys, that it may be the Javonte Williams show. Again, he's going to get better going into his second year.
It's not going to be. This is not a Marlon Mack situation. He's not. Melvin Gordon is not in any way similar to Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack was a breather back. Melvin Gordon was a bell cow back, a top 5 running back in fantasy for multiple years. in Los Angeles, and he's coming off a quality, productive season. We're factoring in the fact that Javonte is efficient. He's not the most explosive runner, but he's an efficient runner. He definitely breaks tackles at a high rate. It's exciting, right? But he's not this yards created monster that would necessitate them, marginalizing Melvin Gordon like that. I know that case has been out there. It's floated that he could just be so good, but I think it's actually a higher probability that Tony Pollard does that to Zeke, where they're just like, listen, we can't take it anymore. Right. Pollard's just so much better. Last year, the difference in efficiency wasn't that great between Javonte and Melvin Gordon. So I think that's a year away from that happening. Yes, next year, certainly there's going to be a strong case for Javonte Williams being like not just a top 10 running back, but a top 5 running back in fantasy. He's going to be drafted as such. Sure, it's possible Melvin Gordon gets hurt and you have like not a Jonathan Taylor season, but you have a really good season because he's in the right offense. The Bulls' case is around the arrival of Russell Wilson. I just want to be clear about that. The Bulls' case around Javonte is not about the efficiency. Okay, efficiency year to year is not what wins in seasonal leagues. What matters is opportunity and the fact that this offense is going to have in the red zone opportunities in particular. So total touchdowns of 7, he could have like 6, maybe 6 extra touchdowns. He could do like 12 touchdowns.
But that's what I mean is like they have a better offense with Russell Wilson. They're playing.
Jonathan Taylor had like 22 touchdowns. I mean, come on, he's not this year's Jonathan Taylor. I know that.
No. I'm not saying that he's going to.
I know the sausage is made in fantasy football. Okay, I know that people look back at last year's ADP and they look at a guy with it's in his second year and he was super efficient and the parallels just jump right out at you. But 20 touchdowns for Jonathan Taylor.
But he doesn't need to get 20 touchdowns. He's playing in the AFC
rushing yards. Get out of here.
He's not going to get that. I'm not saying that he's going to be Jonathan Taylor and have 1,820 touchdowns, but I think that he's someone that's only going to improve a lot going into his second year. He's playing in a much better offense where Drew Lock is not the quarterback, and he's playing in the highest scoring division in all of football after finishing highly last year.
Still not a second-round pick, though.
I think he's a late second-round pick. I have him at running back.
I'd rather have Fournette. I'd rather have Barkley. I'd rather have any of those guys.
I'd rather have Barkley. I'd
rather have T. Higgins. I'd rather have a wide receiver. It's just in best ball when you can just get the spike weeks because he's going to give you these spike weeks. He's going to have a couple 2 touchdown games. He's going to have some big explosive runs. It's going to be great. But in terms of guy you're starting every week, maybe, right? But I'm not second round. It's not palatable. It's just not palatable. If you're being honest with yourself about the situation, about Melvin Gordon and what Melvin Gordon is and Melvin Gordon's injury probability, if you're being honest about it, you can't draft Javonte in the second round in a traditional league where you're not just auto getting. Where you're able to factor out. The nice thing about best ball is in those dud weeks that he has, because Melvin Gordon gets the touchdowns or whatever. Like he had a game last year with 6.8 fantasy points, 6.9, 4.2, 8.4, 8.9, 8.4, 5.1. Best ball factors out all those games and you only get the spike weeks. That's why you want Javonte in best ball.
Okay, but the other part of it, though, with the Melvin Gordon not having a high injury probability, there's 2 things that you talked about that I feel like are contradictory here. And maybe like I just would love for you to alleviate the contradictory of it is, number one, you said the biggest like predictor of future injuries is touches. Melvin Gordon has almost 2,000. He just under 2,000
touches in any given season.
Touches in a given season.
Not historic touches, okay. Not your touch workload. Right. Actually, what happens is what's funny is as running backs age, the further out they get from their injuries and the more consecutive games played they rack up, the lower their injury probability is. Okay. That's the Frank Gore corollary, where Frank Gore, he front-loaded his injuries early in his career, and then later in his career, he became super durable.
So is that saying that like Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley are going to be like models of health? Like
no, they're both projected to have a ton of touches, but basically a guy like, for example, last year, our injury algorithm that powers the injury finder had Derrick Henry with a much higher injury probability than the industry could possibly get their head around because of the projected touches he was supposed to absorb. And you're basically rolling the dice every time you give a guy a carry in the NFL.
That's fair. Okay, real quick before we go, the injury.
Glad we could clear that up, and I could win that argument again.
I actually appreciate you clearing that up. That definitely helps that argument. So
here's another guy I would rather have: Aaron Jones.
I'd rather have Aaron Jones.
Okay, Joe Mixon, all those guys. Now the question is the friction point. The rubber meets the road with Cam Akers. Okay, Cam Akers is getting all the touches. Now at ADP, you don't need to take Cam Akers there. You can wait and get Cam Akers. So I'm not taking Cam Akers there because I could get T. Higgins and then get Cam Akers a round later, right? Or 2 rounds later. But Cam Akers is a strikingly similar player to Javonte Williams, and look at their talent profile. Cam Akers a little more explosive. He's probably going to give you more breakaway runs. Not quite the tackle breaker that Javonte Williams is. Both quality receivers out of the backfield, both on great offenses. It's just that one guy has Darrell Henderson behind him. The other guy has Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, but that's not true though, because Cam Akers is coming off a torn Achilles. If
Javonte came back from it,
yeah, and he wasn't good. When have we ever seen a player come off a torn Achilles?
What, in like one game?
It's not about that. It's the fact that we've never seen it happen before.
What do you mean? D'Onta Foreman was good last year.
Yeah, D'Onta Foreman was a backup that came in for a few games and had no catches and did not do anything fantasy-wise.
He had 4.3 yards per carry, and he wasn't even that good of a prospect. He came back fine. The fact that he came back at all is exciting.
But
I think that the Achilles injury is actually completely overblown. It's one of the great horseshit takes in all of fantasy football that running backs can't come back from an Achilles injury. Meanwhile, I'm watching the Olympics and people are doing round off double tucks at 3 months removed from an Achilles tear. So get out of here. Medical technology, especially these new platelet plasma and stem cell rich injections to, thick muscle tissue, tendons. It's revolutionized the healing process and allowed a guy like Cam Akers to actually come back in the same season from an Achilles rupture. So I have no concerns about his Achilles. This guy is a total animal. If anything, the fact that he came back in any shape whatsoever and did anything is indication that he's a complete and total animal, that he's Wolverine. There's claws under those hands.
Yeah, I love Cam Akers, so I don't want to push back too much because, again, I'd prefer Javonte Williams.
You better not be telling the fresh fantasy people to fade everybody that had an Achilles tear.
I didn't say that. I just said
you better not do that, Alex.
Fading Cam Akers.
You better not.
No, I like Cam Akers. I think he's fine where he's going.
I think it's a good debate. I think there should be a debate. I think the Javonte Cam Akers debate doesn't happen because the disparity in ADP is so wide right now. But I think it's a debate that should happen.
Yeah. All right. Last question, real quick before we go.
There's more questions.
Oh yeah, one more question. You talked about the injury predictor.
Is there any other shows you have that are this long and debate intense?
Definitely not.
Does anyone else challenge you, or do you challenge people like you challenge the Podfather? The people are getting such a refreshing, super fresh and refreshing, fresh refreshing podcast where so many of these fantasy shows just two guys agreeing with each other and moving on to the next topic. This is not it. This is what real debate sounds like, fantasy people.
It's great stuff. I love it.
Isn't it great?
It is great. I enjoy it. It's good. Yeah, it's good to have a debate. The thing I was going to ask, though,
it's amazing you're able to do this while it seems like you're leaning forward the whole time. I don't know how you're holding yourself up. I feel like you're like Michael Jackson. Remember when he was like almost like levitating? Like, how the hell did he do that? The way you do these podcasts, like you're levitating over the microphone. I can't even figure out how you're doing that with your posture. I'm really impressed.
I'm standing. No, I'm just kidding. It's just
how
my
are
chair.
You doing that?
I don't know. I'm just like This
is like the moonwalk.
It's the moonwalk.
This is like the equivalent of the moonwalk of fantasy. I don't know how you're doing it. Or is it another one? Is it like, what was the song where he did the thing where he He like goes back and then he goes forward, and you're like, how does gravity doesn't affect Michael Jackson? Gravity doesn't affect Alex Caruso.
I guess not. But the last thing I wanted to ask, you mentioned Derrick Henry as the guy that the fantasy industry could not wrap their head around the injury predictor. Besides Zeke, who seems, according to the profile, like destined to be injured, are there any other players that really stick out as a high probability to not make it through the season?
Well, there's Christian McCaffrey. I mean, that's real.
Oh no,
that is real. If he gets the touch, if that's the great sort of paradox of Christian McCaffrey. In order for him to score all those fantasy points per game, like 28 fantasy points a game, he has to get an incredibly high workload. And at that BMI, so these are the factors, right? It's injury history, it's total touches, and it's BMI. And the problem is at 200 pounds, he's just not built. And he has super scary soft tissue injury history the last couple of years with super scary. So everything about him is scary. His size is scary. His soft tissue history is scary, especially the lower body soft tissue injury. And the workload is scary. So those are the reasons why I am I'm a little more concerned than others. And I am not saying, oh, he's injury prone just because he's injury prone. No. We ran it through the prism. We ran it through the algorithm, and he absolutely is injury prone. So just be careful there. And also, Travis Etienne is injury prone, right? Travis Etienne has missed all of his games in the NFL. Right. He tried to play last year and he broke his foot. So all the algorithm knows about Travis Etienne is that he gets hurt and he misses a lot of games. So that's another player. Basically, a lot of players that are smaller and have a big workload. These are players that you need to be worried about, generally speaking, because it's the Christian McCaffrey corollary that they just got overused at a smaller size. I would be worried about that with Chase Edmonds, right? I'd be worried about that with the other guy that is maybe the guy that to answer your question the best would be Elijah Mitchell.
Okay.
Elijah Mitchell is absolutely an injury concern this year. And he's his injury history last year. He had the cleanup procedure on his knee in the offseason. And it makes sense, right? He's small. He's 200 pounds. They asked him to carry a significant percentage of the overall team carries. He suffered those lower body injuries. Like it all aligns, right? For danger, right? Danger for this year. So that's the case for Tyrion Davis-Price. Tyrion Davis-Price is a guy I'm not leaving my draft without. You can get him in the final rounds. I want him. It's a run-first offense, an efficient run-first offense. They don't have a significant investment in Elijah Mitchell. They have a more significant investment in Tyrion Davis-Price in terms of draft capital. Tyrion Davis-Price was an animal, a complete machine. You love broken tackles. That was his specialty at LSU. And he also has enough speed to give you explosive runs as well. And in the context of that system, the ability to get to the outside, plant your foot in the ground, get upfield, like Elijah Mitchell was able to do, watch preseason, see how he looks. And if he can do some of those outside zone runs in preseason, I'd be even more bullish on him. Because if he can do that, then I think it's going to relegate Mitchell to, close to a 50-50 time right off the gate. Like week one, it could be down the middle. They could be alternating drives as early as week one. I would do that. Again, that's what I would do. Like if I were the 49ers, instead of being super cavalier with my season and risking it being completely a waste and going up in smoke with a Trey Lance injury, I would not call design runs for Trey Lance. I let him run on his own, but I wouldn't override the system and put my hand on the tiller and force him to run. If it's not his option, I'll give him the option to run. Sure. But no design Trey Lance runs. That would be number one. And a 50-50 split out of the gate, Mitchell and Davis-Price. That's how I would run the 49ers offense, and I think I would probably do a better job than Kyle Shanahan.
I like TDP. I think he's a phenomenal pick. He's someone I'm targeting in a lot of drafts. Rookies after Rashad White, TDP was the next guy that I wanted to go draft.
He's going to score a bunch of touchdowns. If he gets that role, maybe he's not going to catch a ton of passes.
100%.
Because I don't foresee Trey Lance doing a lot of dump offs. So it's not like, big PPR back, but PPR, non-PPR, the guy's going to go out and score 10 touchdowns. You want him. Agree.
No,
Think about the possibility of him having like an Antonio Gibson rookie year is very possible.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great take. I think we'll end on that. I think that's a fantastic way to go. Before we go, you got a lot of great stuff going over at all your underworlds, your overworlds, your player profilers, everything
Overworld.
else. I just made that up.
I love it. No, I love it. I'm not going to debate that. I'd love to debate you, but not on that.
Anything that you want to plug, anything that people should be listening to, please tell the people where they can find it and why they should be investing.
Player Profiler on YouTube, subscribe, and Player Profiler on the internet is one of the best websites ever for football content. And the Player Profiler podcast, I mean, it's pugilistic every time. Every time. Not every time. Most times. A lot of times. Sometimes.
I love that.
And a lot of great info. A lot of great takes. A lot of great info. Explosive Keenan Allen.
Hey, don't forget the draft kit. The draft kit. I also have a pretty cool draft kit that I got to be a part of this year.
Who did you break down?
I broke down Jalen Hurts.
There it is. Right? There it is. And that's funny. That's coincidentally, Trey Lance is going to be this year Jalen Hurts.
Oh, funny how that works.
Right, funny how that works. Yes. Yeah. League winner. Yeah. League winner in quotes.
Exactly.
Jalen Hurts. But yes, our draft kit is actually amazing. And we had super in-depth team insights where we go deep into the trends. We talked about it today, like with the Cowboys. I pulled that right from the draft kit. All the key metrics around the Cowboys, their pass rate, their pace of play, all these reasons why Dak's going to smash and Pollard's a buy and Tolbert and even Dalton Schultz, right? That's all from the draft kit. We published these team insights in May, right? So if you want to actually get your arms around where these teams are going and which players on which teams to target in your fantasy drafts, we're putting that content out before anybody else, and it's super fresh. It's the freshest out there. And Dario Offstein, our head of analytics, has cheat sheets with auction values, super flex, non-super flex, every type of format, with the ability to interact with your draft so that as players get picked, you can cross them off your board. It's super cool. And also, unlike a lot of cheat sheets, the cheat sheet really does incentivize you to go late round quarterback and late round tight end, where if you just go off the cheat sheet, I can guarantee you're not going to overdraft those positions. And as long as you don't overdraft those positions, you're going to be in great shape with your fantasy draft typically. And you're drafting obviously the right players like DeAndre Swift and Rashad Bateman and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Breece Hall. These players that at ADP give you the best chance to win your league. That's what the draft kit's all about.
I love that. That was a great way to close out. Matt, it's been a pleasure. Podfather, it has been a pleasure having you on the show today. Appreciate it. As always, for you listeners, I appreciate you listening along with us, enjoying the greatest sport in the world that is fantasy football. So as always, you guys already know, please leave a review. You guys already know what to do. And I hope you all have a great rest of your